All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another Cosmos webinar. Today, I am joined by a lot of fantastic people. I'm super excited about this webinar. We're going to have a panel discussion around Agentic AI, the next frontier in artificial intelligence. And with me here today, we got two panelists, Dmitry Shapiro, co-founder and CEO of Mind Studio, and Mikhail Raja, co-founder and CEO of Sonic Jobs. And the moderator of today's panel is going to be Noah Kravitz, owner of Resonant Digital. So welcome all of you. I think this is going to be a really fun discussion. I'm really looking forward to this. And if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll answer those as time allows. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you three.
Thanks, Jonas. Welcome, everybody. Good morning from the west coast of the U.S., California. Actually, I think all three of us, not Jonas, but all three of us on the panel here, so to speak, are in California. So good morning from out here, and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. My name is Noah Kravitz. As Jonas said, I work out of a company I own called Resonant Digital, doing writing and content creation services, mainly for tech companies, one of whom is NVIDIA. And for the past 8 years, give or take, I've been fortunate enough to host their AI podcast, which is how I got ankle and then knee and then waist and then neck deep in all of this deep learning, computer vision, machine learning, everything that we now have kind of rolled up and called AI. And it's allowed me to meet folks like Mikhail and Dmitry, who I feel like I forgot to say happy holidays, whatever you may celebrate. And I was going to say, I bring that up to make my corny joke that I feel like it's a gift to me just to hang out and talk to these guys, because I haven't talked to either of you, we were saying backstage, for a couple of months now. But I was fortunate enough, I've worked with Dmitry and used his company's platform quite a bit. And I have been on at least one pod with him, and same with Mikhail. I had the chance to talk with him on a podcast and a lot off air. So I'm super excited to talk shop, talk about agents in AI. Mikhail and Dmitry, your company's approaches to it, and just your thoughts about agentic AI. And I'm sure that'll branch us out to all the other stuff going on, because it's been a wild couple of years. I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. So all of that being said, I will be quiet for a second here and turn it over to these folks to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they do. Dmitry, if you would, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I'm currently CEO of Mind Studio .ai. That we'll talk about. Before that, I was at Google for 4 years on the product side. Prior to that, I was the Chief Technology Officer of MySpace Music, if anybody's old enough to remember that. Prior to that, I built 2 other venture-backed companies. One was a big competitor to YouTube called VO Networks. One was a cybersecurity company, enterprise software cybersecurity company called Iconic Systems. Got into software in 1984. When I was a teenager, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So these days I describe myself as an old nerd, certainly, immersed in AI, and actually have been, we were doing machine learning stuff in 2005 when I was running VO. We had video recommendations before YouTube had video recommendations. All of that was machine learned stuff. So exciting times we all find ourselves in today.
Mikhail?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mikhail. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sonic Jobs. We've been building agents before they had a name, so since 2019. I started with if anyone in the audience heard of RPA, so you kind of started with RPA and then added machine learning to that, and we had this weird tech stack which we would tell everyone about called RPA plus ML plus computer vision. And thankfully now all of that got simplified and obviously kind of came along the LLMs and really the agents. So yeah, excited to talk more about it, and yeah, pleasure to be here.
All right, so we've got some topics we talked about to cover, some notes to follow, that kind of good stuff. But out there in the audience, if you have questions, talking points, things you'd like to hear our take on, or I'll give my take as much as I can, but I'm happy to defer to the experts here. Please pop them into the chat. We'll keep an eye on it, and we would love to make this kind of an interactive thing with you. And again, thanks for taking the time to join the webinar. And thanks to Vast Data. You should check out the Cosmos community. It's my last little plug. It's in me. It's what I do. The Cosmos community, where there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, discussions about what's going on in AI, breaking news and new product launches, and kind of more, technical, philosophical takes. Lots of stuff over there. It's cool to see a community online growing around all of this. So we wanted to start just by kind of laying the groundwork here, setting the table, and defining what agentic AI is, what an AI agent is. And I will be the first to say that I feel like I have a good working understanding of it, but as with all things new, right, the language is sort of evolving and changing, and as the tech changes, the marketing teams change and all that stuff. So, I don't know if you can get two experts in the field to agree on a universal definition, let alone the whole internet. But my understanding of AI agents is that they're essentially systems, AI apps, bots, something that can go off and execute tasks, do things with some large degree of autonomy, and that they are, I think of them as things that do work on humans, on the user's behalf. So the user could task an agent or a system of agents to go out and do stuff. That being said, Michiel, you dropped a definition in the notes here. So let's start with you, and we can work from there.
Yeah. So I'm part of a agent founder community, which kind of gets together and talks about these nerdy things that we all love. And we kind of came up with this definition, which I'll kind of read out and then open it up. And Dimitri, I'm curious about your thoughts as well, because we've never discussed this as well. So we came up with autonomous software systems that can perceive their environment, make decisions, and take actions to achieve specific goals, often with the ability to learn and adapt over time. And the kind of attributes we kind of touched on was, access to memory and also adding to memory, self-determines a plan of action. So you've got a goal, but you're not planning each step, which I think is an important part. We talked a lot about verification and permissioning, and actually it's a topic I care a lot about in the context of agents. Kind of what are they allowed to do, what are they not allowed to do, and kind of how does that work? And then kind of sophisticated actions and self-improvement. So those are the kind of basic constituents. I do think it's evolving quite fast, and I think what was agents a year ago, I'm sure it will evolve even further, but that's kind of what we came up with most recently.
Dimitri, you were saying before we went live here that Mind Studio, you use another term, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I don't know if you're using it instead of the word agent, or it's just kind of a type of agent that you guys are working with. So what's kind of your thoughts about what an agent is? And
I think there's a lot of nomenclature inflation going on in our world. Everybody's is a marketer and spinner, and we get all kinds of amazing stories of autonomous beings doing things, and it's all great. But I think it becomes super fuzzy and hard to figure out where to draw lines, and that's why we're asking, is an agent this or is an agent that? And so we kind of intentionally have chosen to use a word that's similar but intentionally different, and we call them AI workers. And AI workers are less than whatever this AI agents thing is that you guys are fantasizing about. AI workers you could just describe as just being these let's call them automations, things that can sort of do things that knowledge workers typically do. And what an AI worker can do, I describe now as, could you hire another human, like an intelligent human, and then onboard them to do some job, to do some process, to run some process? Okay. If the answer is yes, if you could explain to them what they need to do for, again, generally intelligent human to be able to sort of take those steps and do them, then you can build an AI worker to do that same stuff right now. And yes, they've got sensors, but what does that mean? Well, it means that they can log into some system and get some data, and they can like search the web and whatever. They can get access to information, and then they can do something with the information, intelligent. And mostly that's like take the information, think about it, transform it in some way, enrich it in some way, get some other data and figure out, disambiguate it, and then like put it into some other system or send it to somebody. Like once you start sort of at scale, and we've got over 100,000 of these AI workers that have been built and deployed, so we can have this like vantage point of seeing what people try to do, everything starts to sort of show up of like the work that the typical knowledge worker does is not all that intelligent, right? It's intelligent enough that you need to be a human in the past to be
numbers between columns.
Yeah, like you couldn't do RPA. RPA, robotic process automation, was sort of the last generation of automation technology that could do repetitive things quite well, but as soon as things sort of got fuzzy, that's where RPA stopped.
Right. Okay.
Well, now you can keep going through the fuzzy, and you can build it faster than building the old RPA systems, because you don't have to teach a person about, an AI agent, an AI worker, about like all of these things. It knows how to parse websites, for example, right? It knows how to search something all the time, once a day, every 5 minutes. Look at the patent office and look at all the new patents. And if there are patents there that are at all related to what my company may be interested in, that's pretty fuzzy, at all related to,
right?
Let me know. I think that's the worker. The job of the worker is just once every hour, ping the patent office, take a look if there's, using intelligence, whether there's something I should know about, let me know. If not, don't worry, don't bother me. And I can have hundreds of these things running, doing all kinds of things, and they're small things, but these things can just do them really, really well, and you can build them in like 5 minutes to 15 minutes, push a button, and they just run. Like, would you call those agents? I would say they're much dumber than agents, but I would argue they're much more valuable.
I was thinking, and my knowledge of tools like Zapier is pretty limited, but I was thinking of something sort of in between, like smarter than a Zap. But the big thing, Mikhail, that I heard was Dimitri wasn't talking about the ability to learn and adapt over time, and that self-improvement and gathering memory. So but Dimitri, in that case,
you can get them to do that. Meaning, if they have long-term memory, you can get them to do, in a sense, postmortems and learn from. So, like, you can get them to do it. But I propose that that's at this moment better done by you, the person who built these workers, and can observe them and say, you're kind of dumb over here. Let me edit you a little bit and nudge you this way. Right. Like, I've learned that this thing you're doing could be done a bit different. You didn't have to learn it, because you may have learned something else. Like, once you start getting like things to optimize, you kind of never know what they're optimizing for. And so they might get to the solution, but in a completely wrong way. And so wouldn't it just be easier for you to like look at and say, no, I don't like what you're doing there. Do it this way.
I think the definition is very similar, to be frank. I think that, the learning piece is kind of interesting. And I guess in the context of what Dimitri is saying, let's take an analogous example to the patent office. You could say, hey, search the news, search the Financial Times and tell me what's relevant to my company. Or New York Times, and you could use the same worker to do that task at the patent office and the New York Times, or you could have two workers. And so I think what Dimitri is saying is actually it's probably easier just to have two workers. I think the notion of the agent in the kind of, and I would agree in some sort of forward state, is that you could take that same agent and that was doing it at the patent office and then just make it do it for the New York Times as well. That's obviously at a state where I think we're not quite there yet in terms of kind of the whole ecosystem. But yeah, that's a very subtle nuance, to be frank. And apart from, guys building agents, to be frank, like no one cares about that. A client's not sitting there saying, "Oh, do you have 2 agents or 1 agent?" Like, it doesn't matter. You're just doing a function.
For every new thing you want the thing to do, again, think of this like an employee. If you had like the ability to hire and operate cost effectively, like ultimately inexpensively, as many employees as you wanted, you would give each of them like some kind of as small as possible a task. Because as soon as you get them to do multiple tasks, that's where you get ambiguity. And when you get ambiguity, you're introducing noise. And noise multiplied by permutation, well, on one hand is fun because you can get all kinds of weird derivative effects, but you feel not very much in control. And these models are already non-deterministic, right? Like one moment you might get this, another you might get that. And so the less noise you introduce into the system, the better everybody sort of behaves. Right. You get what you want, you can observe it, you can understand it, you can fine-tune it. And it does it much faster and cheaper, right? And that's the other thing, is you want it to be fast, you want to reduce latency, you want it to be cost effective, because some people are running these things, every minute they're right. Polling things, and well, wow, you're processing a lot of data now. Like watch this channel on YouTube, read all their transcripts and take them all and deduce things out of it, create new news stories, yada, yada. Like you could spend a tremendous amount of money once you start building workers to do that.
Right.
Or you could do it very cost effectively.
And I think maybe just 2 points to highlight from Dimitri's kind of, statements, which I think actually clients, people in the outside world care about is, with the RPA world, again, taking the patent office example, you could you're giving the worker, AI agent, again, kind of both of those work, the task of going to the patent office and giving you, like putting in front of you relevant patents that are new. Now in the RPA world, which is the old world, and again, just 2 years ago, not even that long, you would have to give let's call it the automation, specific tasks. You would say, hey, go on this URL, click on this button, search for this term, look at things that reflect that specific term in an exact match or a fuzzy match, and feed that back to me. And that could take like a few weeks, if not months, to implement. Just that one automation kind of end to end, because you'd have testing, it would break along the way, all that sort of stuff. Today, and Dimitri is exactly right, that's 15 minutes. And so you're setting the goal. And so there's a speed efficiency. There's also a reasoning efficiency, right? Because as Dimitri talked about, you're not saying, give me this exact match of word. You're saying, hey, give me the things that I care about back to me. And that's a huge difference in terms of business benefits. Like, fundamentally, what do people care about is like the outcomes. Like that's a huge difference in terms of outcomes for individuals working in businesses, for individuals doing stuff for themselves, and then fundamentally for businesses as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you start, spot on, Michael. And again, once you start thinking of it in this way, well, one, it gets radically easier. You're like, okay, I get it. I just get them to do small tasks that require some intelligence, and I can articulate that. I can like build them. Noah, you said backstage that you hadn't seen Mind Studio in like a month. It's crazy. This weekend, actually, we launched a new capability where you build now these agents, these workers, by just saying what you want, just typing in a prompt, just like you could like generate an image by typing in a prompt with some specifics. you can generate this type of a worker, and the AI will take that and build all the steps, build all the automation components, configure all the model calls, set up the schedule for you, and you can just like it'll generate a plan. You can look at it and say, yes, that's it. Push a button and deploy it, and that thing is running. So like you can build these things in, again, 5 minutes to 10 minutes.
How
Things that look at the patent office and synthesize for you with intelligence what you need to know. This generally might be relevant to your business. Holy crap! It's not 3 weeks to implement RPA. It's 10 minutes with a prompt.
Right.
And you don't like it, open up a new tab. Like you simultaneously can do building 10 of these. It's like, like image generation. It's like type a prompt, push a button.
So to kind of take a step back, and this may be, I don't have a window into how much the audience does or doesn't know about Sonic Jobs and Mind Studio, but Dimitri, Mind Studio is primarily a platform where users can build AI workers.
Yeah, build and run them. Yeah, build, deploy them.
And then are you also, build, deploy, right. Are you also, behind the scenes or what have you, building AI workers that, sort of power the platform or power other parts of the business?
The capability I'm actually describing to you, this thing to what you could type in a prompt and it then goes and does all the Mind Studio stuff and builds it. That's actually a collection of Mind Studio AI workers. So we use Mind Studio to build these AI workers. We deploy them. You can deploy them as serverless cloud functions, so they can be called via APIs. And so we deploy them, and then we create interfaces inside of Mind Studio that leverage those things that have been created with Mind Studio. And by the way, that's why we're like innovating so quickly. Like every week we push out like massive things because you get this like recursive loop of more and more capabilities.
Right.
And now that the thing itself can generate workers, can basically drive itself, then like you could go stupid crazy if you want and build 1,000 AI workers this afternoon about all kinds of random ideas.
Isn't that what
people are asking for on Reddit? Like you could automate that. You could build everything people have always wanted in some subreddit and say, here you go. I built all those applications you guys wish existed. Here they are.
We're not liable if somebody in the audience goes off and grabs the wrong subreddit and does this, right?
Pay attention.
Michiel, Sonic Jobs is a platform for job seekers, job posters.
Yeah, so we kind of took a very vertical approach to building, which is kind of different to obviously Mind Studio. And so we basically focused on the problem of advertising for clients. So if you think about enterprise companies in the US today spend 15 billion on recruitment advertising, putting their jobs across the internet. And the redirection step for the candidate going from a job site, a social site, another site, basically back to, so say you're CVS and you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars advertising your jobs. When the candidate comes back to your platform, so from the job site or from the social site, there's automatically a 70% bounce rate. So as soon as the candidate's redirected, they're kind of like, I'm tired, I'm not going to do this. And so only 5% of the clicks that people pay for when they advertise jobs are actually converted to an apply, and then obviously even fewer to an interview and to a hire, etc.
Right.
And so we basically created AI agents to white labeled across all of the large job platforms. So we partner with today 22 of the largest job platforms, so that when a candidate sees a CVS job, as an example, on, let's say, ZipRecruiter, they can apply directly on ZipRecruiter, and the data transfer happens through the agents. So the agents basically understand all of that data and then go to the CVS website, fill out the form, submit it on behalf of the candidate. And so, and we can talk more about it as we go on. But maybe just a kind of touching point. What started as a data transfer now is a huge intelligence layer, right? And this is kind of super interesting because our first kind of route to market was, hey, you get much better conversion, so you get much better price. Like we convert at 26% instead of 5%. So hey, you get much better price per click because your clicks now convert at kind of a higher percentage, and you don't need to do any tech work, for yourself. So there's no API integration, etc. Today, that's more of a intelligence layer, because we understand the job description, like everything that they're advertising. We understand every detail of the candidate, in terms of the resume, etc. And so you can start to kind of firstly authenticate candidates, so authenticate users and say, hey, you're a real user, like, not fraud or not kind of, someone like making a fake click or fake application, etc. You're a real user. And then secondly, you're relevant to the job that you've applied for. And so you can go back to employers and start to say, hey, this is a really good fit. This is maybe not as good a fit. You can feed that back to the candidate as well. And so we've seen kind of, what started as, let's move this as a data transfer layer to now hugely intelligent layer, which has kind of all sorts of possibilities that we're kind of going through right now.
So from a technical standpoint, technical and sort of thinking kind of bigger picture, what can agents let you do, kind of this agentic approach to building let you do that other approaches to building with AI don't or can't offer you? And my understand, or my sort of mental model is still this, it's kind of like what Dimitri described, right? Like I'm the orchestrator and I've got, my 10 different agents that are taking care of my grocery shopping and my writing I need to do for work and no, just kidding. And my, scheduling and whatever else, right? But I feel like that might be an outdated or maybe more so limited understanding of what agents can do or might be able to do going forward. Why agents? Why not another approach?
I'll chime in. I'll chime in quickly. Again, I think I caution everyone from going down the slippery slope, or in this case, up the slippery slope of like, oh, agents, super agents, mega, advanced agents. What is it that you want to get done? What is it that you want to do? And write that down. And if you think about it, if I, again, could just bring in a human to do this, could I explain what I want done? If the answer is yes, go ahead and build an agent form. We call them workers, but if you want to call them agents, you can say, this is my agent. It's the same thing. It's something that does something. And then you might trigger it yourself manually whenever you like give it a URL and push go. That triggers an agent. One of them can be doing that. Another one could run every hour, or every minute. Another one could run when you do something in your CRM system, when you enter a new record in HubSpot. That kicks off one or many workers that do something. And then you start to realize like everything is actually quite simple. They can do whatever it is you've been trying to do. Because if you can do it, they can do it.
Right. And so in the example of, your new kind of one prompt build an AI worker tool, one of the agents would then be tasked with parsing taking what I asked for, build me an agent that can, schedule all of my kids' activities. And so there would be an agent that would take that and break that into a plan.
It breaks it into a plan of how it's going to build it and what that would look like and how it would work. And you could like parse the plan and say, I like that. By the way, it does an amazing job. It's like a really smart product manager / architect that says, oh, this is the way you'd want to do that. And if you say yes, you can refine it, or you can say yes. And then it just goes and builds all of those things, lets you test them and fine tune them. And when you're happy with them, push a button and deploy them. And then again, if they're on a timer, they just run. If they're on a schedule, if they're listening for some event, they get triggered.
So is the and this might sound like one of those things where I've thought too much about this and, came out the other side to exactly where I started from. But it's kind of the difference between that and, building a workflow with, pre-AI workflow tools. The difference, the natural language parsing and the ability of, the LLM to understand my request and then, generate an intelligent response. Like, is that really the core of, or if not even the core, like, is there more to what AI is doing in a
That's really
situation?
kind of it.
That's kind of it.
It's that
I mean, it's a
intelligence
big it.
part.
I don't mean to undersell it.
I'll give you another example. So like, and that's what I think maybe many more people will be able to understand. So like, there are lots of, platforms, applications out there that allow people to like comment on things and do reviews, like what's known as user-generated comments,
Right.
allow people to add something to the system. Whenever you do that, the first thing you got to think about is moderation. What's going to happen when all the kids show up and start typing in all kinds of, nasty stuff? Well, and that always, moderation to write that in code, what is good and what is bad, that's extraordinarily difficult. But you can hire anybody off the street and put them in front of a screen and say, just look at every new comment and say, is this good or is this bad? So like, that's not overly intelligent, but it's extraordinarily hard to write. Mm-hmm. But it's extraordinarily easy to create a worker to do that. You can do that in 5 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. 5 minutes, you can give it your terms of service and say go. And then again, once you've published it, right from within your code, if you're a developer writing these apps, right from within your code, whenever a new comment comes in, you just hit this API and pass it the comment, and it brings back to you good or bad. Right. And for 5 minutes of work, you've done what used to take teams, infinite years in a sense, to like keep iterating on fine-tuning, whack-a-moling these comment sections.
I feel like before we're done, we may have to. I'm trying to make a corny joke to promote your live stream later today, but I want to see you build one of these things in 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you can see us build, but in the process, just open up a new tab and you build them yourselves. This is like, again, people should start thinking about this like image generation. Yes, I can type in the prompt to generate an image for you, but you can just open up a new tab and type in that prompt too while you're watching me do that. Yeah. And then go and build a bunch of agents, and you will see your own ideas come to life. And again, they might be complete and done. You just push publish, go. Or they might be 95% what you want, but you're like, I didn't like the way you did that. Let me fine tune that part.
Right. And which is the whole thing with using these systems for anything, right? You're not getting 100%, but getting from 0 to 95 is a long way.
But again, I'm not exaggerating. It's as easy as generating an image. You articulate to it as specific as you would to a human. What do you want it to do? And it should be able to do it for you.
And I think just maybe to kind of bring that full circle, I think we're at a point in the journey of kind of AI and agents where the question is not what can agents do, which, by the way, is how it started. Like for the last 2 years, really agent builders have been kind of starting and kind of saying, hey, what can this do? And kind of finding use cases. The question is now, what problem do you have? Mm-hmm. And that's the more interesting question, I actually think. And then you'll find it might be an agentic solution, it might be an AI worker solution, it might not be an AI solution, but the realm of possibility is so much bigger now that really the question you should be asking is like, what's your problem? Mm-hmm. And maybe I see it in the chat. So just to give you some concrete examples of the stuff that, and I think I always get founders come up to me and be like, like, what should I build and stuff like that? Like, what do you build with agents? And my answer to them is always like, solve a customer problem. Like, just don't, if you want to build a startup and you want to use AI, like, that's all fine. That bit actually will be the easy bit. The hard bit is going to be understand your customer and solve their problem. And so, just to give you a few examples of the sort of problems we've solved for customers over the last 6 months, just concrete, and Dimitri gave. So one is And I touched on it, you know, companies like CVS, Amazon, Dish, Walgreens, etc., who we work with, they would come to us and say, we pay for these clicks, but we don't know if that's a real human or not. That could be anyone. You know, we've been dealing with fraud and you know, click fraud kind of all the time, and so how do I solve for this? And today our agent can authenticate the user. You can go in, you can give an OTP, send it to your emails, and send it to your SMS. The agent can do that. That's a real problem that you can solve through an agent. Moderation also happens in kind of advertising, and you're getting a bunch of resumes. Clients would come to us, you know, particularly high volume clients like Dish and CVS and Amazon. They're hiring thousands of people every month, and say, you know, I don't have enough time to wade through all of these resumes because it's taking me too long, and I appreciate you. And so what can I do? And so we deployed agents to moderate and to say, hey, these candidates are a really good fit. These candidates are not a good fit. In a similar way to Dimitri talking about kind of the moderation of reviews, we also can do that from kind of resumes, answers, and job descriptions. And so I think the real question is like, what is your biggest problem? What are your customers' biggest problems? And really then kind of working there to how do agents solve that? Yeah.
Michiel, you made me realize, Jonas, I apologize. I had the questions tab hidden in my chat window here on the interface. So, but I think we touched on a couple of them. But this is an interesting one. I'm curious if you know, similar or different viewpoints on this one with you guys. How would you recommend people think about and build out their workflows to ensure agents / workers don't do anything potentially destructive? So I think I'm reading this, I'm unpacking it sort of as two separate questions. The second of which is the potentially destructive thing, which you know, has some kind of AI specific overtones to it, but kind of gets into moderation. And I was actually thinking about the best way to ask the both of you how you measure, like, if you're moderating or if you're, you know, asking a team of AI workers to build out a new worker for you. Do you have I think of it as a percentage, but like kind of an accuracy target you're striving for, or if there's a better way to ask that. So there's that. But the first part of the question, I think, is kind of more of a, you know, one of the things with more people using AI tools, and even starting from ChatGPT and prompt engineering, right? It's kind of almost forcing people to think in a different way and sort of think more step by step, all these chain of thought reasoning and all this stuff, right? It's like forcing people to kind of, you know, in order to get the chatbot to supposedly slow down and think step by step, or whatever way people are talking about it, getting, you know, us to slow down and kind of map these things out, like you said, Dimitri. What is it you're trying to do and how to break it down into subtasks? Are there general principles, you know, best practices that you would give folks when they are thinking about how to map out a workflow to solve, you know, to do something that they've identified?
Yeah, I have a pretty strong opinion on this, and it's not an exact answer to your question, but I think kind of the right place to talk about it is technology is not a moat for any company today. Like, it's just, so like, you're building a startup, don't think I've got I've optimized on the LLMs to do this like one thing, or I've built this kind of, you know, flow that can do this one thing and I'm going to sell it. Like, I think that's a very weak moat that's not going to last very long. And you know, as soon as it's even reasonably successful, like 200 other people are going to try and do that. I think the framework that we use, and I have a strong opinion on it, is that there are two moats that remain in a startup today that you should be thinking from day one on how to build. One is a deep domain expertise. Whilst like we say you can take something like 15 minutes to build in 5 minutes. The reality is, like, you've got to understand the problem deeply, and every vertical, every client is going to have a different problem and is going to like look at it differently. They're going to track it differently. They're going to report it differently. All of this stuff is real things, particularly at the enterprise level. And so having a deep domain expertise is going to be a competitive advantage that you can build on. And the second thing is building as a flywheel, or like as a network effect. So like, how does usage today help you with usage tomorrow, right? If it's just like a flat kind of, hey, I can, I don't know, you can take a picture and tell me how many calories, of your food, and tell me how many calories there are. Yeah, that's fine. But if you can kind of store that data, and if you can tell my friends about that data, or you can tell my dietitian about that data, you can kind of help me over time map that. You need to think about that kind of flywheel, and that can be a flywheel for user engagement again and again, that single user, or a flywheel around how one user engages another user, and kind of like a real marketplace network effect. But those are the only two modes in my opinion, and I think they're the only ones enduring. Kind of as technology gets better, those are the two things that are going to serve startup founders well, and in general builders well. I'm happy
Dimitri,
to lead with Dimitri, by the way. Usually, sometimes we agree, but sometimes we don't. So,
No,
yeah.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think all of that is spot on. I think it depends on, again, on what is it that, if people are looking for opportunities to, excel in the world of, this new world that we're living in of generative AI, you can go the route of, I'm going to start a company, and I'm going to build some technology, and I'm going to offer it as a SaaS, and people are going to use it. And those are going to get harder and harder to do, because of what Michiel was saying. I think that's a really tough path. But you can actually turn it around and say that all the companies that already exist, that have built the companies, like SMBs, mid-market, enterprises, government, etc., all these organizations desperately need to refactor their operational processes through this new lens. They need an injection of intelligence and automation, and they've got big budgets, and all of their budgets are flowing into that. That's the next big wave. Some of them want to do it themselves. The vast majority of them don't want to do it themselves, don't think they can do it themselves. And so you can knock on their door and say, I do this, and get paid like absurdly well for services to be able to do these things. And again, with tools like Mind Studio, the amount of work required is minuscule. The ROI for automation is absurd, right? Like, you get like extreme ROI. You can in an hour build something that saves somebody, $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month.
right.
But like, what? But
Right.
that's the case. Everything's like a low-hanging fruit. Because again, today people are using humans to do this work, and they shouldn't be using humans to do that work.
I know, Dimitri, Mind Studio has a partner network of, consultants, dev shops, whatever the right word is, who build on your platform for clients, build solutions for clients. Do you have insight into what types of businesses, or sort of what size businesses those end clients, like, is it mostly big businesses? Is it most who are doing that refactoring you're talking about? Is it mostly smaller, more nimble companies? Any insight into who's kind of
it's everyone. It's everyone.
Yeah.
It depends on the thing to optimize for. There is like, who can you get in front of?
Sure. Right.
Like, who do you have a relationship with? You've got a relationship with government, you can get in front of governments, and we've got partners that are, implementing for government. You've got a bunch of relationships in finance and enterprise, go use those. You've got a bunch of relationships in SMBs, or you don't mind like knocking on doors in your neighborhood and saying, look, I can do these things what you're doing manually here, like bookkeeping, writing invoices, like all of that stuff that people hate doing. my father is a restaurateur, and so what he hates is the last day of the month. He's got to go and he's got to like do all the books and like do all the payroll, and he doesn't have to do that kind of stuff anymore. And so, like, he can smile again. Like, what's the value? It's absurd. Will they hire you to do it? Absolutely, especially because you can show them that you can do it. Like, you can build it for them that same day. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it just depends on like what your interest is and where do you have access. But it's for everyone.
And I know this is something, Dimitri, you mentioned it, this going back to the questions. I know this is something you can build on the MindStudio platform. As many LLMs are gated right now, which is good. What models and tools would you recommend to use if someone wants to go out and search for something on the web or connect to online services? So I don't know if gated refers to not being able to go out and crawl the web. Joe's saying yes. Also, I mean, I immediately just, warning siren went off in my head. Do not use Gen AI as a search engine replacement, which I don't know how you guys feel about that. That's kind of been the mantra in my head. But tools for folks who I guess want to connect what they're doing with an LLM to retrieving information from out on the web, or integrating with other online services. I mean, it sounds like this is what MindStudio is built for.
Yeah, that's what MindStudio does. It supports any LLM. Today, out of the box, it supports over 50 models. By the way, not just language models, image code, whatever. And then it can crawl the web. So MindStudio has crawlers that you can point to things and say, retrieve this content, and then take that content and call a model,
right?
Any of these models, and bring back a result. And then take that result and go crawl something else or connect to some other system or whatever. And so we're the orchestration layer to build these orchestrations that can use models whenever they need a model, whatever kind of model it is that they need. Like, again, if you're generating invoices, you're going to collect a bunch of data, you're going to call a model to create a bunch of things, and then another model takes and creates the PDF template, but then is done, right? So like the orchestration is where like all the magic is, I would argue. The rest models are in a sense commodities. You can mix and match them. By the way, one of the big value of MindStudio is we can fail over to other models. Like a couple of weeks ago, OpenAI was down, right? Like everybody was complaining. They launched Sora. Everybody was complaining that OpenAI is down. Well, that doesn't matter to people who are using MindStudio. You just fail over to any of the other models that were up. A few days later, Anthropic had a bit outage. Doesn't matter. You fail over to these other models.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. Michiel, is Sonic Jobs, are you building on, off the shelf, so to speak, foundational models? Are you training your own models? What's, as much as you're comfortable getting into it, how much of the technology that's at the core of what you're doing is, readily available versus stuff you had to build yourself?
Yeah, the majority of our technology is kind of proprietary, and our orchestration layer we use a combination of kind of what's traditional ML, which is more deterministic and kind of goes step by step through tasks, versus also LLMs, which are more generalistic. And so we use a combination of both. I would, in general, I guess whether it's agents or workers, we've found with even still as reasoning has gotten better and better, that there's still a real use for traditional ML models, which can do specific tasks that you ask them to do at scale, which we found a lot of value in, particularly when we think about kind of, if you think about a simple thing like, a job application form, there's a specific order that stuff has to be done in. Like, you can't answer the question for, on page number 5 without answering the question on page number 1. That's just, you might want to, but you can't, just the way the form works. And so there is certain, there are deep benefits in kind of combining this deterministic approach with the reasoning approach. I think kind of failure and reasoning is really important part of all kind of agents in general, particularly as you talk about kind of or most kind of tasks. But finding a way to get the right outcome is not a one size fits all in our experience. And I think, I guess Dimitri's touching on that with like 50 models. It's not the right answer that you take one model or the other model. And some models which are actually, let's say, less large or kind of the smaller models which can do less generalistic activity could actually be the right solution for your problem, because you don't need it to, do 99% of the things that it can do. You just need it to do the thing that you want it to do.
Right.
So we found in building to be that you have to be kind of open to all options, and actually there's no one size fits all. It's really what's your problem that you want to solve.
Yeah. We've got 5 or so minutes left here. So folks in the audience, last call for questions or things you'd like us to discuss. The notes have a bunch of different variations on what's next. So I'm just going to ask you guys, what's next? What's next for, your company, stuff you're working on, or what's next for the whole idea of agentic AI, or just what's next in AI? What's 2025, going to bring, or what's the focus going to be on? I keep hearing about world models. I keep hearing about robotics and physical AI. And I personally, and this is probably confirmation bias because I've interviewed a lot of scientists this year, but I feel like we're in for some big positive scientific breakthrough fueled by AI in the next 12 months, but I don't know. Michiel, Dimitri? Put you on the spot, throw something out there, predictions?
Yeah, I think actually the more interesting question, or the question that I think about is a lot like what will change, and we think about that. The thing we think about most is what won't change. And I really like the kind of Jeff Bezos kind of philosophy. And to me, I've kind of gone on about it a little bit on kind of over the last hour, but I really think kind of what won't change is that customers have really specific problems, and you never win that battle. Like, you never win the customer battle. Like, you'll solve one problem. For us, it was price, and we solved that. Then it was like fraud, we solved that. And it was quality, we solved that. We'll solve, and then it'll be another thing, and it'll be another thing. It'll be kind of, and I think kind of I would really kind of, I think it's a question, or it's a narrative that people are not talking enough about in my view. But if you can keep solving a customer problem, you'll stay ahead of the game. Like, it's actually a bit of a FOMO world out here, like particularly in SF. And I moved out here a year ago, and I would definitely say there's a lot of like, and Dimitri touched on it earlier, like there's a lot of narrative inflation. There's a lot of kind of FOMO happening, what this AI can do this, and my model is better than that model, and all this sort of stuff. That's all fine. That will all keep happening. Stay up to date, stay ahead of the game, and you'll do that because in general. But I think the thing that's going to give you a competitive advantage is being obsessed with your customers. And I think that will never change, that they have really specific problems that they want to solve, and you can help them solve that if you care enough about their problem.
Dimitri?
I think many exclamation points on that again from that angle.
Yeah.
I'll answer the questions from another angle. We should all expect that for the foreseeable future, we're going to get more of the same, which is great. Models are going to get faster, and they're going to get cheaper, and they're going to get more multimodal, and fewer hallucinations, like all that stuff. All that's going to get better and better. And then the question becomes like, great, so what? What does that mean, right? And this is where you start to get into, again, where do you draw the line? One thing it might mean is that you're waiting for some kind of like an Uber concierge, where you say to it, I mostly like hanging out by the pool, sipping Mai Tais. And your job is to do whatever it is that pays me money. I've got a boss and they want me to do this, and you go do that. And I sort of sit back and you do it. I mostly keep an eye on you once in a while, or not.
At least to the third Mai Tai.
I think what people don't realize then is, but as that happens, your boss doesn't need you anymore.
Right.
and so I wouldn't be waiting for that moment too much. But what I believe, again, people, the average person that's sitting in some kind of a company and like doing something, whether they're a solopreneur or some kind of a person in a company, the opportunity is to, in a sense, make yourself irreplaceable. And in this upcoming future that we're all entering, the people that are irreplaceable are the people who have built automations and supervised automations. Those are the people that are replaceable.
Right.
Because you actually don't need many of those, but they're extraordinarily valuable because they make the whole factory go.
Right.
And so the sooner you can start taking whatever job function you have in your surrounding job functions and turning them into these like autonomous things, these AI workers that are orchestrated together and evaluated and constantly upgraded and fine-tuned, the more you get to be in control and have, I think, what is the future of the most stable job in the world are the people responsible for maintaining, upgrading these automations.
And to that end, Dimitri, you're doing a live stream. You're going to be showing people how to build workers, something along those lines in a couple hours?
Yeah, if they go to LinkedIn and find Mind Studio, we'll just announce it there, or it's going to be broadcast on YouTube, so on our YouTube channel. But yeah, an hour from now, you can be able to watch it. If you miss it, don't worry about it. It's going to be recorded and archived. And again, we're just going to show people how easy it is to do these. And if they've got ideas, either we'll build it for them, or better yet, we'll tell them to open up a new tab and build it for themselves, and we'll celebrate with them.
Fantastic. 1 o'clock Pacific time. And Michiel, folks who want to find out more about Sonic Jobs, sonicjobs.com.
Yeah, sonicjobs.com/AI agent. You can see more about kind of what we built. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time to hang out and talk agents, workers, AI, all that good stuff. It's great to see you both. And Jonas, thank you as always to Vast for hosting us.
Thank you all. This has been a fantastic webinar. I want to thank you, Dimitri and Michiel and Noah. This has been super, super awesome. And I've gotten a lot of my questions answered. So thank you for that. This recording will be up on YouTube as well. Dimitri, I'll definitely check out yours. I'm really interested in diving into Mind Studio there. So thank you for letting us all know about that. It's going to be super, super cool.
Great time. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you so much, and have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. And we'll see you in the new year.